The US strikes China with 100% tariff this week, and we are going to discuss the impact on agricultural commodities with Jerry Gidel right here on Connected Farmer, your channel to keep you up to date with the latest trends in agriculture and livestock. So, Jerry, we have had one of the craziest weeks. We were ready to have discussions, I say we, US and China, about having more trade in about 2 weeks. The US was ready to discuss all the soybean purchases that China has been avoiding, but the things have taken a crazy turn on Friday when President Trump announced 100% tariff over all tariffs, and yet uh, he had also announced rescue for U.S. farmers on Tuesday, and in the middle of the week, President Trump was already saying that maybe this rescue would not be even necessary because of all the negotiations with China. So, in all of this context, I guess that we are going to see a lot of turmoil in the markets next week, and the commodity prices will take a hard hit, at least in the short term.
Yes, it definitely was a pretty crazy week. We earlier in the week, as you mentioned here, things seemed to be moving along. Trump was talking, about China being renewing their soybean purchases and maybe even be able to hold off on his farm aid thing that he's talking about. It seems to be resonating about 13 to maybe as high as $15 billion but things definitely went sour towards the end of the week here. I'm not sure the exact timing. I think the U.S. had already made the statements even before this week began about that they were going to increase the Chinese utilization of U.S. ports for delivery and some increases there along the way, and that and so in that kind of environment, on Thursday, the Chinese announced a similar type of program for U.S. goods going to China, which is particularly a lot smaller a level, to say the least, here, as we all know, from that standpoint. But I guess the one thing that I think most people in the trade thought was pretty well settled was the agreement that the U.S. and China had put together about rare earth purchases by the U.S. from China and that type of thing. That was supposedly settled at least 6 to 8 weeks ago type situation. Then all of a sudden, that seems to have changed. A lot of things changed on Thursday. We had rumors out late in the afternoon that maybe Xi had a stroke and is in the hospital, type situation. Maybe that some kind of communications from other people started this thing. I don't know if that's the case or not. We have not seen any confirmation from Beijing about the health of Xi and that. And then even on Friday, we had the president's appointment to see his doctor about things, get into the thing, prompting more concerns, but that didn't seem to be more than a routine situation there. But the key thing is that uh, the Chinese announcement about bringing up their tariffs to match the U.S. was one of them. But the key thing was is that if set President Trump off was this whole backpedaling on agreements and that on what we're dealing with here. With the rare earth scenarios, and that prompted him to talk about increasing his our tariffs to them by 100%, that type of thing. Definitely not what's needed here if we're going to try to keep this trade relationship between the U.S. and China at some even keel at this point. That type of response, and to some extent. That response is not surprising, considering the fact that something that supposedly had been uh, negotiated previously and had been quelled, all of a sudden come back at us in a big, big way here
But
from
yeah,
that.
but another background is that we don't have too much data, and there is a lot of reports of drought in several areas in the U.S.
Oh, well, there's uh, the whole scenario on what's going on in the Russian, excuse me, in the Chinese negotiations is very murky. And at this point, we really don't have a lot going on. There's other issues, as you mentioned, out here in the markets that are cross currents at this point. We had some late rain or some rains in some areas last weekend. In that, but they really were not that significant. So there's lots of issues going on there. Reports from the country continue to be mixed, with some areas getting some decent yields, but a lot of areas still reporting problems because of the yield situation on the harvest as it comes through. The one thing we don't have right now is an update here from the USDA about our crop progress. I think the trade was anticipating a week ago, was, Monday data with corn moving up into the 20% level. Beans, maybe a little higher than that, up in the high 20s, early 30s. I guess you'd have to add another 10 to 15% on both of those for this coming week. From there, so we're definitely not half done by any means, but some areas definitely are further along in that, particularly in the bean side of things. This year's soybean harvest again dried down very dramatically, and there's a lot of beans coming in at 9% or 10%, which is a significant loss of weight, which means less yield when it goes to the elevator at this point. So that's another feature in this thing that continues to be a factor as what we expect. When the USDA finally is able to update their October crop report, which was postponed this last week on Thursday.
Yes, yeah. So yeah, we still don't have the data of the USDA, but in South America, still there will be, I guess, more major purchases by China from South America. Um, and we had a rescue by the United States to Argentina with the purchase of $20 billion in pesos. But I don't think the U.S. farmers like that so much.
Well, it's an interesting scenario at this point. Uh, there was going to be a conversation between Mealy and President Trump about this. I think it's this coming week, but the U.S. Uh, Treasury reported and supposedly was helpful in supposedly putting together that 20 billion uh, dollar peso deal, which definitely helped stabilize the Argentine currency. And at this point, uh, Trump's connection to one of the few South American leaders that is in his camp, I guess, is probably stronger than his disappointment about them going ahead and marketing a lot of beans and grains uh, on this non-tariff approach or uh, process that they put together here a couple weeks ago from there. So right now, at least, uh, that issue about conflict between the U.S. and Argentina seems to be on the back burner again at this point. South America is an interesting one. Uh, Things look like they're expanding pretty aggressively in the corn side and plantings down in Argentina, and that because of the uh, relative prices on beans versus corn or corn versus beans and that. And so that's one factor. The other side of the thing is we've had some good rains in Rio Grande and Paraná, but not so good rains in Mato Grosso, Goiás, Minas Gerais, those northern producing areas, which are probably two-thirds of Brazil's production. And they, at this point, at least, the last update we had a week ago was only 9%. It might go up into the high teens at this point, but here we are, the middle of October, and we should be a lot further along on planning. So there's some back issues out there in Brazil that could be a factor going forward here, and that definitely. The forecasters are anticipating more rains picking up, right, in the coming weeks, but that's still going to be quite interesting as to where it falls and how much soybeans get planted because things get quite interesting if you don't get a lot of your beans planted in Brazil by mid-November.
Yeah, so we are not going to have a lot of news maybe until Tuesday or Wednesday. I don't think any major change would happen right away.
True, true. We do have a federal holiday on top of this on Columbus Day here on Monday, and so that delays some of the information. At this point, we won't. It'll be interesting if we get another weekly export shipment scenario that got out last week when people didn't expect it. Maybe that's going to be the case. They definitely didn't update our export sales and things like that. We did get some uh, ethanol numbers from the out from that industry, but those are the private ones are going to continue. The USDA ones that we get during the week are still most likely going to be delayed, and that's going to make things just a little bit more unknown. I guess the big event is to where because I've been even searching here overnight into the weekend here before we put this together, and I haven't seen any further updates as to uh, what really totally transpired on things on this late this week, because it definitely went from kumbaya to lots of conflict and lots of finger pointing and lots of accusations. So hopefully things start to stabilize out here for us and that. But you're exactly right. Some choppiness is most likely going to continue, and that hopefully we don't slam. Uh, Corn and soybeans prices below the recent range. We did slip, by the way, slip December wheat below its $5 level on Friday, which is not a great sign at this point. From there, on U.S. wheat prices at this juncture, on a longer term basis. But today, uh, we're going to be looking at news from Washington and news from China as to how this thing might get patched together so that both the leaders can get together and talk at the South Korea conference that's coming up here in like 2.5 weeks.
All right, thank you very much.
Have a good day.